Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name is Jincy George. I am a talent management consultant with Arya Consulting, and I will also be your host for today as we explore hiring in a virtual world. Before we start, I just wanted to get the logistics out of the way. All of you are on mute today as you enter because we are all home and we would not want all the background noise to engulf us. So you're all on mute. However, I have given you the capability to unmute yourself. So if you want to chime in at any point, you can unmute yourself and speak and then go back on mute. Also, if you were not comfortable with unmuting yourself, you can please use the chat icon on the bottom of your screen and your raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen to participate. And I would love to have all of you use the chat window right now to just say hello to everybody, so we can get comfortable with using that particular space for interaction. Okay, I see a lot of you saying hello and hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you for doing that. And you could also just practice raising your hands by clicking on raise your hand icon. Okay, I see a lot of you raising your hands. Okay, thank you. So that'll be the way I would love to have the next 30 minutes to be highly interactive. The next piece of logistic is that this webinar is being recorded, and therefore I will be able to send you a recording of this session as soon as we are done. You would receive a recording of this webinar. Um, if you have any questions that you don't want everyone to be, privy to, please use the Q&A window and you can send the question privately to the panelists, to the host. So you can use that Q&A window. Questions are going to be anonymous, so please feel free to ask any question that you may have. Okay, with this, logistics are done, so I am now going to move on to hiring in a virtual world. Again, thank you very much for joining. All right, so let's look at what is the audience like at the moment. On your screens right now, you would have a poll that launches on your screen. And the question on the poll is, what is your experience with virtual hiring so far? There are 3 answers that you can select from: little experience, no experience, I'm a pro at virtual hiring. So here you go. I am launching the poll. Okay. Okay. So thank you. A lot of you are responding at the moment. Okay. So a lot of you have are folks with little to no experience on virtual hiring. And it is totally understandable that we do not have a lot of experience of virtual hiring. Because many of our organizations have subscribed to traditional recruitment practices, traditional talent acquisition practices so far. But this whole global pandemic, this whole COVID-19 situation has forced us to now start thinking of how could we continue to hire the right talent for our organization, but how do we do it without actually physically meeting them? So what is a good way to source remote talent, and how do I do that? Now, but before we go there today, I want to first debunk the myth that virtual hiring is a new thing and it has suddenly happened. That's not true. Remote hiring is not new. It's not a new concept or practice in HR to be actually hiring folks who are spread across the world using virtual technology to really meet them, interview them, and onboard them, and then have them start working. There are organizations where the CEO probably meets the chief technology officer once in 3 years, right? Because the chief technology officer works from some other country, and the person was hired remotely and the person is managed remotely. So remote hiring as such is not new. I wanted to give you a list of organizations, big names in fact, that I hire remotely and have always hired remotely. In fact, talent acquisition is one such HR function that has seen, such an easy adoption of technology than every other HR function. Now, I don't know how many of you would be surprised if I was to tell you that there are organizations that hire remote employees on an all virtual platform, and then they combine virtual reality. You see the person wearing the VR glasses, if that's what if that's what it's called. They combine virtual reality with talent trials, and they actually are able to provide a truly immersive on the job assessment of a candidate's true talent. So that's how far we have gone when it comes to virtual hiring practices. However, if as an organization you have subscribed to traditional sourcing and interviewing techniques so far, this pandemic has just forced all of us right now to accelerate our progress, to where the HR function of talent acquisition was anyways headed. So we are just, going faster to a place that we would eventually have reached otherwise as well. So let's look at this as a good thing rather than a bad thing. And I hope that's where we are all starting, right? Not, oh my God, we have to now learn how to do it, but oh yes, we have to learn this because this is where we are anyways headed. So, as leaders, it is required that with the change in workforce, with the millennial population coming in, we also become nimble and open-minded in our own hiring techniques, so we can meet this exciting challenge of different generations coming into the workforce. Okay, with that, let's move on to what are we going to cover today in today's session. We only have half an hour. Hiring, as you know, is a big is a long process. It probably starts right at a place where your business leader starts thinking about needing someone for the role, needing someone to do something. And then, it starts by understanding their requirement, chiseling what they need, to then going into the market with what you want, etc., all the way till you finish your onboarding and the person has been in the system. So it's a long drawn process, but today in the half an hour that we have, we will only focus on three parts of the hiring process, which is how do you source candidates virtually, how do you screen them, and how do you onboard them. So in these three buckets, I will give you tips and tricks of how to make your virtual hiring experience better, and not just your experience better, the candidate's experience better, and how do you really get to the A talent that you need for the roles that you're hiring for. So let's start and let's look at talent sourcing as the first part of our discussion for today. Now, I think when it comes to talent sourcing and it comes to today's workforce, now when I say today, I actually mean right now, the recent times, when the COVID-19 situation has forced a lot of people out of their organizations. And now there are a lot of people out there looking for jobs. Till very recently, maybe, at least in Canada, till about 2 weeks ago, it was the job seekers market, right? There were less number of people for a lot of openings in the job market, but it's suddenly reversed in the last 2 weeks. We have a lot of people, but lesser openings. So now, how do you really ensure that you don't have people sitting behind keyboards, laptops, screens, and keyboards, click happy, and just applying for any job that they see. They would be applying for a social media manager job at the same time as they're applying for an executive assistant role, because they saw one sentence in the job description that seems to be similar to what they did sometime in their career. So how do you really limit that sort of behavior from job seekers when you are out there in the virtual market looking for your A talent? The first part of that, the first way to do that would be actually to rethink your traditional job descriptions. I would actually recommend, making your job descriptions less descriptive in these times. you want to focus on fewer words, and you want to focus on more intrigue in your job description. um, Especially right now, because you are looking at filtering out those people who are not right for the job. um, so how do you do that? So I have an example that I can give you. If you're looking for, you have to really think about what kind of candidate are you looking for. Yes, as a recruiter or as a hiring manager, are you looking for an engineer who knows C++ and Java? Is that all that you want in your candidate? Or is that the base requirement? Do you want an engineer who knows C++ and Java, but what you actually want is someone who's great at working and collaborating with a team? Because um, let's say you're hiring this person into an extremely well-functioning team. So more than the person being a good engineer, what you want is a person who's an extremely brilliant team worker. If that is what you want, let your job description specify that. So ask for a good team member, a great team player in your job description, and not for an engineer who knows blah blah blah. Um, so you can keep those specific skill sets minimal in your job description, and you can have more on the kind of person that you need. I have a great example from an organization called Clever Tech. Clever Tech has 80% people who work remotely. So they obviously hire remotely and virtually. Here's something that their CEO said, and I would quote, um, at Clever Tech, we win over candidates with minimalist yet provocative descriptions that spark their interest and curiosity, such as, if you like new ideas and want to work with a virtual but absurdly talented group of people in a learning-friendly environment, check out the open positions. Or we might tempt them with something like, you're looking for projects that you'll be proud to share with your friends and family. So that's a whole different way of looking at, what our traditional job descriptions look like today. Okay. Now, the next thing that I would ask you to rethink about is the resume. Resumes today are a work of art. People hire consultants and resume designers to actually help them put their resumes together. So I don't know how much would you really find out from the resume. It's all rosy in those two sheets of paper. How can you know whether you are how can you filter the right candidates now that they are all in different locations, and now in front of you are these beautifully formatted sheets that talk great things about the candidate? A better way of doing that is to depend on virtual platforms out there that can help you, which is looking at LinkedIn, or which is looking at GitHub, or looking at their social media presence. That will really tell you the reality of this person's career, the reality of this person's achievements. Now, for example, a resume will not necessarily tell you whether this person is a good person to work remotely. When somebody works remotely, they need to be able to work with least amount of supervision. I don't know of a lot of resumes that really, tell me when I look at them that they can work with less or a less amount of supervision. Now, how is it that you're going to know whether they are self-starters, whether they are entrepreneurial in nature? Because you need some bit of entrepreneurship when you are working alone. How do you know that? Through people's social media platforms. You would probably see that this engineer who's applying for the role is also someone who in his spare time creates 3D models. Or the social media person that you are trying to hire, she or he has a blog and has created their own website through which they engage with audiences. So resume is limited. There is a whole lot out there which you can do to find out more about your candidate. And the last one is filter, filter, filter. And yes, we wrote it 3 times, because when you are sourcing people, your job, I don't know if anyone of you have heard of Netflix's culture code. It was, Sheryl Sandberg, who's the CEO of Facebook. She called it the most substantial document of the era. Um, Netflix's Culture Code talks about their hiring and promotion and retention practices that they follow in their organization. And when they talk about hiring, they say, do anything possible to hire your A talent. And that means, practicing in a process of elimination when you are looking at candidates, people who are not your A talent. How do you do that? By ensuring that there are multiple um, gates, multiple gating criteria that you are using. One such could be using asking candidates to send you a video of themselves responding to two or three questions. Now, yes, again, it's not traditional, because we are not talking about traditional hiring methods. We are talking about what's new, and how do you do it virtually. So if a candidate is not comfortable sending you a video, well, I'm not sure if they're really comfortable stepping out of their comfort zone. And if that's the case, do you really want them in your organization? So using a video and, giving them 10 minutes or 15 minutes to respond to two or three questions is a great way of finding out whether a candidate can perform and react under pressure. It's a great way of finding out if a candidate can really practice radical courage, and is able to respond to really critical questions like, can you tell us about a time where you had difference of opinion with somebody, and how did you work it out? So if you have a question like that and somebody is supposed to respond on video, you get a lot of cues from their responses. So that's one way of filtering people out. Another way of filtering people out is to keep those people who get click happy and apply to every job that's on Indeed over Coppolas. Put in a criteria, a small sneaky criteria. Say, send us your cover letter, but make sure you start your cover letter with a smiley. Now you may be like, really, start a cover letter with a smiley? Yes, why not? Nobody said we can't inject a little bit of humor in our hiring process. Ask them to start with a smiley. Only a person who's truly interested in the job would have really read every single line in the job description and the application criteria, and will go ahead and put that smiley in the cover letter. That's an excellent way of filtering people out. The other way a lot of organizations filter people out is they tell people to mention their income. They say, okay, what is that particular income that you want? So that's a great way of filtering people out. Or you could also say, log in with Google when you are sending your application. Now, if somebody is not comfortable logging in with their Google, it just tells you that the person is either not willing or not able to set up or do something that you're directing them to do. And if that's the case, I don't know if that is the right person for you, if you're expecting them to work remotely and be flexible about using different technologies. So various ways in which you can filter candidates out. You have to think of what works for you best. Now, why are we doing all of these? Here's why. If you, stick to traditional hiring methods, not that traditional hiring methods are not good, but, with the way market is right now, surplus, supply of talent, you will probably be inundated by resumes and profiles, and you would lose a whole lot of money and time in your hiring process. And given that you could be losing between 25 to 40% of a candidate's annual salary in just hiring and onboarding the person, that's insane. So you really want to be able to filter your people out. Okay. The next move, the next stage of hiring that we're moving into is candidate screening. Now, when we talk about candidate screening, what are the different ways in which you can find out whether you have the right person you are hiring. Um, Hi. Sorry, looks like I lost you guys for a minute there. We are back on. So, what are the screening methods that you use when you are hiring your folks? So, there are three things that you could be doing to ensure that you are finding and getting the right talent into your um, uh, right talent for your role. The first one, and again, this is an unorthodox. This is an unorthodox method. This is not something that we do in traditional hiring, but it is to have talent trials. Now, what is talent trials? A lot of organizations who do virtual hiring today have um, started asking candidates in a remote location to actually work on a project for 5 to 10 hours. Can you actually complete a project for us? And we will pay you for that, for using 5 to 10 hours to complete it. Now you would say, why would you pay someone who's not even on your payroll yet? Because if you don't do that and you hire someone without really assessing whether they can get work done, you will be paying a lot more than just the cost of 10 hours of work. And probably 6 months later, you're going to regretfully realize you made the wrong choice. So you rather, it's a great idea to rather pay for 5 to 10 hours for that person to actually complete a project and come back and show us that they are the right candidate for the role. um, if you can't give them a project to complete, if you are hiring, since I've been giving the social media manager example for so long, if you're hiring a social media manager, let's say, can you ask them to go to your website and find 10 things that they think should change about your website and ask them to come back after a day? Whatever it is, what talent trial, what test can you give them before they join you? And that will be a real good screening tool to use. The next one is interviewing. Now, the problem with interviewing is a lot of hiring managers today, um, we, you know, we may or may not really be trained on interviewing. Interviewing is not a gut activity, right? You go into a room, you say, I don't know if I really like the person. It's not about liking or disliking and how you instinctually feel about people. um, we at ARIA, we talk about behavioral interviewing, and we train people on behavioral interviewing, and we subscribe to behavioral interviewing completely. And there is no limitation, or there is no reason why you cannot be conducting a behavioral interview when you have the person in a remote location. Behavioral interviews are questions based on the past, and they are, you use questions after questions. It's like removing the layers of an onion. So you keep asking questions till you can get to understand what the person has done in their past, which is going to be a great predictor for the future behavior. Now, a couple of things about interviews. You are going to hopefully not limit yourself to telephonic interviews, because telephonic interviews are good, but they don't really give you the full picture, which is they deprive you of getting bodily cues and body language, visual cues from the person that you are interviewing. So ensure that you are using Skype or Zoom, and I'm sure many of you are already using it, and it's not new news given the situation and the lockdown we all are in. So use one of those platforms to do a video interviewing with the person. Use behavioral interviewing questions. Ask crucial questions, the non-negotiable questions, non-negotiable to your company culture. Don't shy away from asking those questions. Those questions can look like, um, what are your plans to grow the organization? Or if you had a disagreement with someone in your team, how are you planning on solving them? Ask those crucial questions, because um, you would definitely not ask how are you planning on solving them. You would ask a behavioral question, which would probably look like, in the past when you had a disagreement, how did you solve them? And in the past when you had to grow your organization, how did that look? But ask those crucial questions to find out whether there is a cultural parity between this person who's coming in and your organization. Also, in an interview is the right place, especially for remote work, where you can ask questions like, how comfortable are you working without a physical team or without a physical work, physical office? A lot of candidates may apply for a role, but when it really dawns on them that they will be working alone from home and there is no physical space that they can really go to, they may not really be interested in the job. So ask those critical questions at the interview stage so you can screen the person out if they're not the right person to work for you. Um, Also, nobody stops us during an interviewing stage from asking things like, can you tell us of things that you've done on your own, right? Or things that you do in your pastime? What do you do? Because when you are hiring people for remote work, you definitely need people who are not waiting for instructions, who can really take something and go from there without being minutely monitored. So asking such questions as what do you do tells you more about the person's ability to manage their own time and their ability to really juggle a lot of different projects. One of the recruitments that we were doing for a role in London, we had a candidate, and I asked her, "What do you do in your pastime?" And she said, "Oh, I import stuff from Philippines and I sell it here in Canada." And that's an immediate cue to me as a hiring person, to me as a hiring leader, that this is an entrepreneurial person. This person can really, has the ability to think out of the box, generate ideas, generate revenue. So depending on what role you're hiring, you may want to ask such questions as well in your interview. And the next bit is assessments. And, especially as we move into a virtual hiring situation, I cannot stress on assessments enough. What you can't find from behavioral interviewing, what you can't find from talent trials, you would find from assessments. And as a consulting firm that does assessments, we have enough proof and more of organizations who come back to us constantly, and who believe in the power of assessments, and they use it not just when they hire new people, they also use it for internal promotions and progressions. What can assessments give you? They can give you whether a person is a culture fit to your organization. They can tell you whether this person is emotionally intelligent. They can tell you whether the person has the leadership skills that they say they do have. So they can also either um, confirm or negate what the references of this particular candidate probably tell you in a hiring situation. So I cannot, stress enough on the requirement of assessments. And a warning here is, please don't go rip off MBTI assessments from Google and do those. MBTI or DISC are assessments that we would never recommend you do, especially when you are hiring people. So that's a warning. There are a lot of assessments out there. Find what's right for you and your organization, and use that to, uh, you know, complement the other methods you use to screen candidates. And after screening, let's move on to the onboarding experience, our last bit for today's session. When you are hiring physically, you can give a great onboarding experience to a candidate. You can bring them to your office. You can make them meet people. You can make them, take them around. All of that, you can help. They would probably already have things set up for them in terms of IT and infrastructure. However, when you are not physically, when that person is not able to physically come to office and you are not able to physically give them an onboarding experience, the chances are that you may probably end up giving a very bad onboarding experience to this new hire. And what happens with poor onboarding experiences is it affects the retention of employees. You know, there's a lot of statistics out there that says your onboarding experience can determine whether you are going to stay in the organization after 6 months of you joining. So it's a critical place for you to pay attention to. And here are a few things I want to bring your attention to, and you can pick ones that work, ones that you need to be, um, you know, focusing on as you bring someone new. One is your online presence. The onboarding experience, there's a lot of literature around onboarding experience doesn't really start once the person has joined you. It starts far before them joining your organization. It starts from when they become curious about your organization. And when someone gets curious about your organization and starts to explore what your organization and the culture of your organization looks like, my question to you is, do you have enough stuff online for the person to look at and for the person to really get comfortable with the vibe of your company? If you don't have enough online presence, and if you're not a decision maker who can really influence any online marketing material that you have, you do it for do it on your own. Pull stuff about your organization's history, your organization's current state, revenue, things about your locations, where people work, how many employees, what's your diversity like, and then send it to the candidate so the candidate starts getting comfortable um, with where they are headed. It's pretty much like if you're going to a new location, you want to be reading about what's the tourist destination, and what should you be beware of, and things like that. So it's pretty much like giving them a lonely planet on your organization. The next one that I would like to pull your attention to is pre-boarding. Now, that's again not onboarding, but something you do before a person onboards, which is ensuring that you are scheduling the first 2 weeks at least as they come in. And a lot of organizations don't do it. And when candidates come in, they are floundering. They don't know which meeting to attend. They don't know, whom to meet. They don't know where to start. It's a great way to mitigate that is to actually put stuff on their calendar before they join you, and so they know they have some structure around what they should be doing for the next few weeks. I'll have a handout ready with point of contact. Who is their HR point of contact? Who is their IT point of contact? Who is their point of contact for insurance related questions, for payroll related questions? So give them a handout with point of contact. It really makes someone feel more at ease when they know where they should go if they have trouble. Business handbooks. When I joined ARIA, a year ago, the first thing I remember on my desk is all the handbooks of, how my salary is going to look like, what my insurances look like, what are the policies regarding, what we wear to work, what vacations look like. So have your handbooks ready. And also probably you want to block some time off in the calendar for them to review these handbooks. Also, give them access to FAQs. If you already have pre-prepared FAQs for new hires, great. If you don't, create one and then circulate it in your team and ask people if they want to add something to the FAQs. It is a brilliant tool to make someone who's joining your team feel like they don't have to constantly call somebody or connect with someone. They can just find it in the FAQs. Now, when someone physically comes to an office, it's, you can give them a t-shirt, you can give them a mug, and it's a great idea to have a swag pack ready for them, that even if they're not physically meeting you and they are onboarding in a remote location, you can definitely use courier services to send them a swag pack, send them a welcome to the team pack, which probably has a team calendar, pictures of team members, has some t-shirt, mugs, whatever it is that you use in your organization, as a branding impetus. People really feel happy about it. I've seen people who regularly on a Friday would wear their company t-shirts. So that's just how you can improve the idea of belonging in your team members. Make sure if they're remote, you think proactively about their IT and infrastructure needs. Do they need two monitors? How are they going to get it? Do you need to get a laptop delivered to them? Do they have the right kind of Wi-Fi set up? Do you need to help with that? All of those things that you think the person will need. If they need some special softwares, has that been downloaded? Microsoft Outlook, what version of it do they need? Has that been done? Do they need passwords? Have that ready for them. Give them a virtual office tour, and I can't stress enough on this. When you onboard somebody, give them a virtual office tour. Take them, use your laptop, take them around, let them meet people. It helps people to visually uh, to be able to visualize where their colleagues are sitting or where their manager is sitting. That whole visual of where people are placed really helps people build trust. So give people a virtual office tour. um, Also schedule one-on-one meeting with the team. So do they need a one-on-one meeting with the manager? Do they need a one-on-one meeting with the team? Yes, they do. They need a meeting with even those folks in the team with whom they may have very little interaction, because it's great to be able to have a face and a name to your team members and to know what each person does, so you don't feel like you are lost and you don't know where to go. And the last piece, which as a firm, Arya Consulting really believes in, and we actually, when with our recruitment services, this is one service that we make sure we sell, which is onboarding coaching. We ensure that our clients uh, try and be open to onboarding coaching, and we want them to experience what onboarding coaching does to new hires in their organization. And for so long we've had great feedback about onboarding coaching. You can have an internal coach do this, you can have any external coaches do this. For the first 3 months or 6 months of a person coming in, give them a coach, because people don't know what to do, because people may be overwhelmed, because people may be worried about their team members. Maybe they inherited a poor team, maybe they inherited difficult people. Through all of that, it is great to have someone whom they can go to and discuss their problems and priorities, and someone who helps them be on track. So that's why onboarding coaching is something, as organizations and hiring leaders, you must definitely think about. So with that, we have looked at all three buckets that we wanted to look at today. How do you source when you're virtually sourcing? How do you screen? And how do you onboard virtual employees? I am aware that in the half an hour, we will not be able to cover everything under the hiring bucket. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me at jinsy.george@aria.ca. You can also write to hello@aria.ca, and one of our consultants would reach out to you. And if you have any questions regarding HR advisory, assessment, talent acquisition, leadership coaching, talent development, or career transition, any of these buckets or more, we are here for you and we can help you. Thank you guys for joining today. Thank you so much, and we will see you in our webinars in the coming weeks. Please follow us on LinkedIn at Arya Consulting, and you will have your webinar information there. Thank you so much for joining. Take care. Bye-bye.